Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's lesson. I just want to explain the color choice here. Purple is the color of royalty. It's the color of success, and that is what we would like to achieve here. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit for interest's sake. So what are we doing today? Today we are going to do lesson 3 for English for grade 8, sentence structure. Now, when you think of sentence structure, you know by now that you have quite a few words strung together, maybe only 2, that have meaning. What does structure mean? Structure is arrangement, organization, or the assembly of the sentence that tells us what it is made of. So let's see now, we're going to state the obvious. And what is the obvious in a sentence? And guess what? You all know this. There's not one of you who doesn't know this. You know that when we start a sentence, we start it with a capital or an uppercase letter. You know there's a punctuation mark at the end of the sentence. We also know that we usually have a subject, verb, object, order. But of course, it's also possible to have a sentence without an object. A subject is given once. It could be referred to throughout, referring to he or him if they've mentioned the subject in the beginning. Then there's a verb or a verb clause. And then we're also going to look at independent clauses and an independent clause. If you're independent, it means you don't need anyone. Then you can stand on your own. And that's what this is about. An independent clause will make complete sense on its own. It's a complete idea and it makes sense on its own. And then, of course, a sentence also identifies number and tense. It can tell us if it's singular, can tell us if it's plural, and then it can tell us if it's past, present, or future tense. So let's look at a few of these aspects quickly. The capital or uppercase letter, the punctuation, and the subject. Let's look at the sentence quickly. He kicks the ball. He starts on a capital letter. At the end of the sentence, there's a full stop. And of course, you know, with punctuation, there could be other punctuation marks that are used. It could be a question mark. There could be an exclamation mark, all of these. So we see here our subject is he, the verb is kicks, and the ball is the object. And just a reminder again that at the end of this lesson, you're going to complete a quiz. And if you follow this carefully, look at every slide and maybe go back to them, you'll find all the answers you need because that's what's being asked. Okay, so what do we know? We know that a simple sentence has a subject, a verb, and an object. But what is a subject? A subject tells us who or what is doing something. The verb will tell us what is being done. That's the action word or the doing word that tells us what's happening. And the object tells us to whom it is being done. So if we say he kicks the ball, the subject is he, then we know that kicks is the verb and the object will then be the ball. But there's some interesting things that you might not realize. And you know this, but sometimes you forget about it. There's something we call in a sentence a subject and a predicate. And all that this is, it's not so difficult. Your subject stays the subject, but the predicate is your verb and your object combined. That is your predicate. So don't think when you hear these terms, you think, oh my goodness, I don't know what that is. I've no idea. You do know what it is. You just have to remind yourself that you are aware of what it is. Now, we also have things like verbs or verb clauses, and then there's the independent clause, the idea that stands on its own, it makes sense on its own. And we're going to look at how we can take a sentence and identify how many people or things there are and the tense it's in. So, if we look at this sentence, you will see he dances. Now, it can stand on its own. It makes perfect sense. You don't have to have an object here. He tells us there's only one. If it was they, it would have been plural, but here it's only one. It is singular. What about dances? Dances tells us it's happening now. So it is in the present tense. Great. I'm very happy that you remember that. Now, a sentence can also consist of a subject and a finite verb. We've just seen the example of the finite verb. And finite means I can stand on my own. I don't need anything else. Wonderful. Because he dances, perfect sentence. And that verb makes perfect sense on its own. It doesn't need anything added to it. An infinitive verb cannot stand alone, and it has to in front of it. So if it says to dance, then it isn't a finite verb, because to dance tells it's an infinitive. It can't stand on its own. It doesn't make sense on its own. And here we have the sentence, he wants to dance. And you know what? You can say he wants. Perfect sense on its own. He wants to dance, then the infinitive is to dance. You'll see that, yeah, he wants has a tick after it to show it's a finite verb. It can stand on its own. But to dance is, I suppose to some people it will make sense, but it's not a full sentence that makes sense. So you'd have to say he wants to dance if you want to tell them that's what it is. So be very careful of that you don't get yourself confused. Try and remember the difference. We're only going to go through little baby steps at a time to make sure that you understand what is going on and how to do this. And then we have something called an independent clause. Don't have to worry about this really right now. That's also the complete idea. It makes sense on its own. I went to bed. Boop, independent clause. It stands on its own. It makes sense. Because I was tired, you cannot write a sentence that says because I was tired. And you often do it in comprehension tests. That is the answer. You're supposed to say, I went to bed because I was tired, and you just say, because I was tired. Why did you go to bed? Because I was tired. But that isn't a complete sentence. So that isn't a correct sentence. Because I was tired, yeah, is dependent on the independent clause. It cannot stand on its own. So I hope you're going to remember some of these interesting things that you've learned today. And remember, as I say, practice makes perfect. You will now go to the link and you are going to complete the quiz. Take your time about it. It shouldn't take you more than 2 or 3 minutes, and I think that you have more than enough time for that. So go to the link, complete the quiz, or you can go to the QR code, which is on the next slide, and see that you look back at everything you've learned, because that will help you a lot. And this is something you can do over and over again and make sure that you get it right. So I'm going to wish you good luck with your quiz, and I want you to try your best and see that you get it right. We're keeping it simple. Let's see if you can do it correctly and get the best results you can from it. Have a wonderful day.